Oh, okay. Well,
It is
for...
Child's Play. I was.
Huh?
It is Child's Play.
Ah,
I was right.
yay. I'm excited.
So I looked on Brutalities to see if they had anything for Child's Play, but they don't.
Oh,
Oh, I can hear us.
you can hear both of us?
Yes.
Yay. You know, something I didn't even think about is I can just watch myself on the phone to make sure that everything's coming through okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I had it up on my other screen, just in case.
Because that's smart. I'm going to have the sound off, though. It's so cool. Okay. Ugh. Can I hear myself?
I can hear you just fine.
I know, but... Oh, no. Okay. Well, I'll just turn my volume all the way down. Yeah, there we go. Problem solved.
Yeah, I usually have it muted. I was just leaving it on to test it a little bit.
Yeah. Oh.
This is fine. It'll be even better once the caffeine hits.
Man, I should have just like taken mascara and just like gotten water to make it look like I've been like crying and been dramatic and be like, we've been having tech issues.
Oh my god. Don't even need all that.
You're like, stop being dramatic. Uh, but I've learned some new transitions, so
Yay!
with despite all of our technical difficulties, I've figured out what to do. But all right, all right, I will go ahead and transition us. Ooh, I okay. Anyways,
Should probably go ahead and just take out this spoon.
spoon.
Spoon!
Welcome. I know you guys could hear our conversation, so but we've been having live stream issues and that's why the video looks really messed up, but it looks a heck of a lot better than it did before, so you guys can deal with it.
I didn't want to be the only visible one on the live stream.
Yeah.
It'd be a little awkward.
Like I know I've said this in our first live stream, but it's crazy how complicated live streaming is. Like, I have been video editing for 15 years now, I think. Like, I've been video editing in like professional programs for years and years. And even this I have trouble with, so that just goes to show. But anyways. Well, today,
We do it for you guys.
huh?
We do it for you guys.
Yes. Yes, we do. It's pretty enjoyable. But
That's fun.
but
When it
anyways,
works.
we are doing the Jurassic Park book review. And I really want to like do the theme, but I don't want to be like copyright striked or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, we've also had enough issues. Like,
Yeah, we
we're
don't want
good.
to play our luck.
Nah, we're
Yeah.
good.
Yep. It's
This is
like,
fine.
yep. But starting off, what? Well, I guess I'll go ahead. My tea is very straightforward. It's the morning and I'm sleepy, so I'm drinking the Numi aged Earl Grey tea, and so so soothing.
And I am drinking Bigelow Benefits Lean and Fit
Ooh,
tea. It's an oolong tea with citrus.
ooh, that sounds
It's good.
good.
It is good. I'm not normally one for oolong, but this with a little bit of sugar, I I had to get several boxes. Like I got a case of it because I have this every morning.
Adding citrus to oolong reminds me of the Brutalities lime balm one. So I
Yeah,
guess maybe just citrus kind of complements the bitterness of oolong, and that's why,
it does.
huh, interesting.
It does. And it is tasty. Again, I have to take mine with a little bit of sugar just because it's still a little bit bitter, but it's with a little bit of sugar, it's amazing and delicious. And again, I had to get a case of it. It's hard to find. It just recently came out, but it's hard to find already. So I went on Amazon and bought a case of it.
So I have a question for you.
Mhm.
Um, so, well, before that, ADD moment. Look, guys, I decorated for Halloween. It's kind of hard to see, but doing a
I didn't
quick
notice until she pointed it out.
doing a quick tour. At the top, I have a spider and a spider web, and then the horror movie shelf. I added a ghost sign that says "Keep calm and spook on," and then I got a little skull. And then behind the spoopy house, I have a skeleton cup. That one you can't even see though. And then the shelf below, where I have like Spyro and Grutzko and all of that stuff, I have the bleeding skull candle, which I've used with Jess over here, and those things are so cool.
They are. They're pretty neat.
I may add more. Like I do have like a spider web, but I normally put it on our utility door, and that's why I did. But I could like put it on like the bookcase. I don't know. But anyways, my question for you is how do you pronounce the author's name? Like, it's not, is it Crichton or
I think it's Crichton.
Crichton?
I think.
Because I'm like,
I think
Crichton
that's right.
doesn't sound like
No, I'm
that would
pretty
be
sure it's
right.
Crichton.
Okay.
I think that's how they pronounced it on Audible.
Oh, it
I
is?
think. I think that's how they pronounced it on Audible. I mean,
Crichton.
I don't know, man.
Yeah. But I didn't know he has
Oh, he
written.
has a ton.
Yeah.
He has a ton of books.
Yeah.
And a lot of those have become movies too.
Oh, really?
Or TV series,
Do you
yeah.
remember offhand which one?
I know he did Andromeda Strain.
Oh.
And he's done a few others. I forget what they were exactly, but I was looking through his list a little while ago. He's done several others.
Wow.
And yeah, including the next book in the series, Lost World,
Well, that's
which
awesome. I
wasn't
know,
as good
like,
in my opinion, but you know.
oh, but this book needs barely introduction. Even if you've just watched the movie, you know what this book's about. But I'll just say like a super brief summary. So this, what would you call him? Entrepreneur, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah.
He wants to create a island with with dinosaurs to show rich kids and rich families and stuff like that. And so he has to be like they're pretty close. They've been working on the park for a good long while, like 4 or 5 years, I think it was.
I want to say it was 5 years that they said.
And they had
Um,
maybe like a year left, and it was getting to the
yeah.
point where they were needing expert confirmation that it was.
They needed to have experts flown in
Yeah,
to inspect it, basically,
yeah,
and evaluate whether or not it was safe
yeah. And as we all know,
or if adjustments need to be made. And of course, they keep saying over and over, no expense was spared. And they do all these things. They have so many safety features and all. Expenses were spared. And things happen, shenanigans ensue, dinosaurs get out, people die.
yep.
It's Jurassic Park.
Yep. Yep. But
So, to
uh
introduce our guest star here, Jax the Hellhound,
and I have
currently guarding the window.
normally during our live streams and podcast recordings, I will close my door because my husband can be kind of loud sometimes. And so if you see a random guest come in, it's probably my cat. At least I hope it's my cat because Steven isn't here. So, so if anything else comes in, then yeah, you guys would be witness. But anyways, so entertainment scale. Do Should I go first or do you want to go first?
You first.
Oh man.
This was your first read through, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was my very first read through. Maybe if I talk about it, I'll talk myself into a reading. Like honestly, like this book, it's really good. Like it's well written. The story is extremely interesting. Like it's one of those books where like you need to put it down because you have life to live, but you don't want to put it down because it's so intriguing.
There's so much going on.
And it's like even despite
Yes.
watching the movie since I was a kid, like the book was still just as interesting.
I
And
feel like the book was more interesting.
they did go into a lot of details that the movie had to gloss over because, you know, a movie doesn't have time to cover all of
Yeah.
that. Like, and for those who are interested in knowing, the book and movie are pretty similar up to the tour. And then from that, they have some scenes that kind of intersect with each other, but they're done by different characters, which is kind of weird.
Some of them. And
Yeah.
some are with the same characters or more involved.
Yeah.
But it does deviate a lot more once you get to the tour of the park.
Yeah. But
But then it gets really good.
but it's like this book is very entertaining. Even whenever I just finished it, I was like, I kind of want to read it again. So I think there's a few characters that are those types of characters that you just want to punch. So because of that, that's going to dock it a few points, but I'm going to give it an 8.
So this was my second read through, and I actually give it a 9.
Ooh.
I love this book. It's a little bit slow in the beginning,
Yeah.
just a little bit.
But it picks up pretty quickly at least.
It does. It picks up very quickly, and they have a lot of interesting information. They describe things very, very well. I do dock it a point because there were a couple of characters, like you said, that were annoying, and I was kind of hoping that they would get eaten. But of course they didn't. But otherwise, it's a very interesting book. I love the characters in it, most of them. And I love the dinosaurs and how they describe them.
Mm-hmm.
And they do a very, very, very good job on making this book intense to read or to listen to. It is available on Audible. So to read it or to listen to it, it just creates such a vivid picture in your mind. And it does a wonderful job of making very, very intense scenes.
Yeah, you know, I feel like it's fairly difficult for a book to give you the level of intensity that this book gave me. And I really do like that in the beginning of the book, it kind of fleshes out because it took place in like the 80s, early 90s. But it kind of fleshes out the world on why they're so advanced the way that they are. And do you remember when this book was published? It was after the said date in
Good question.
in the book, I think. I want to say it was published in 1990.
I think, but I'm not entirely sure. Let me see. Jurassic Park. We didn't do our homework, guys.
Yeah, we probably should do this beforehand. But
A little bit. Uh, 1990 science fiction novel. So
Okay.
yes.
But like he does such a good job fleshing out, and even though there definitely are some false facts put in the book, it's mixed in so well with actual facts that you really can't tell. Because, you know, there's some books that you're like, oh, it's sci-fi, but you can tell that it's like the science that they're using is totally bogus. But this, in this case, it does seem that the science, at least on surface level, is sound. But I know, like, they've already
Yeah,
shown.
it's I mean it's false, but it's
Yeah.
close enough to the truth
Yeah.
that it's more believable.
Yeah. Yeah. Like they've already shown, unfortunately, that we cannot extract DNA from amber, and it's just DNA degrades pretty
It
quickly.
breaks down over time.
Yeah, I forgot what the how long it actually stays like sustainable.
It's definitely not 65 million years,
I think it's actually like maybe 10,000 years or like it's a good like couple thousand years, but I don't think it goes into the
but it's not.
millions.
Yeah, it's not anywhere near the level of what Jurassic Park would be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So no real life dinosaurs, but we
which is
do.
probably a good thing.
Yes, but to be fair, birds are descendants of dinosaurs, and the
Mhm.
way that the biology like genome and stuff has them sorted, they are still technically dinosaurs. So,
Yeah,
just
the book
saying.
did go into a lot more detail in that aspect. They didn't really even mention birds in the movie that I can recall.
Mm-mm.
It was mostly like reptilian and amphibian DNA.
Yeah. Well, and then what
And
was one thing I noticed in the book is they did describe them as the dinosaurs were almost like in betweens because they were
Mhm.
commenting how the T Rex kind of swam like a crocodile, but then, you know, in other cases, some of the other dinosaurs appeared more like birds or they acted more like birds, like especially the raptors.
or
Uh,
the crappies.
yeah,
Or
yeah.
not crappies.
Compies?
Compies, yes.
Yeah.
I'm just still caffeine hasn't quite hit yet. It's getting there, guys.
Uh,
Yeah, compies. They also in the movie, the first movie, they didn't really go into them breeding at all.
true.
That was more in the third movie when they found the nests.
Well, they like Dr. Grant, he did find a nest and he's like, "Oh, they're breeding" in the first movie, but that's all you
Yeah, they
see
barely
about it.
mentioned it.
Yeah. He's just like, "Oh no, they're breeding." And then that was it. It's like, okay. It,
Yeah, and it's such a forgettable scene in the first movie that you
yeah.
don't even really think about it. It was a much bigger deal in the third movie
Mhm.
when they were looking for the kid that was lost.
Well, another thing that's interesting too is the description of the dinosaurs between the book and the movie. The size seems to be pretty spot on. Like the raptors are still a lot bigger.
On not on everything. They got it way off on the Delos. The Dilophosaurs, the ones that spit the acid.
Oh
In the
yeah, it's a
movie,
lot. Yeah.
right, yeah, in the movie it was fairly small, maybe 3, maybe 4 feet tops. But it was a fairly small dinosaur. In the book, they're described as 10 feet tall, and they can spit the acid up to 50 feet.
And then, in addition to the size, the book describes dinosaurs that are pretty colorful, while in the movie it goes with your typical like brownish like. And I mean, we know nowadays that with the more up to date science that many of the dinosaurs were more than likely colorful,
Mhm.
and quite a few of them, even more than we previously thought, had feathers.
Mhm.
I mean, they're more like preliminary feathers. They weren't
Yeah,
actually
they're not
like,
quite the same as
yeah,
bird feathers.
yeah. I forgot if they said it was for like more like insulation or what exactly the purpose of the feathers were, or maybe if it was just for like attracting mates.
Could
But
have been a
yeah,
combination of the the different things.
But from my understanding, is the last up-to-date science is the T-Rex actually was more colorful and he had feathers, or the preliminary
Yeah.
feathers. So pretty interesting. But because I know, I want to say back in the late 80s, early 90s, we hadn't, like, we knew some dinosaurs had feathers, but we didn't think they had there were as many dinosaurs with feathers that we think nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah, back then we thought of them a lot more as reptilian, more scaly, and not really any feathers. Feathers weren't really associated with them quite yet,
Yeah.
especially the raptors or T-Rexes.
Yeah. But dinosaurs are pretty interesting creatures, though, because, birds are actually in the reptile family. So dinosaurs are very much in between, like, crocodiles to birds. It's just that slow transition. And I'm sure I haven't really compared the evolution of early dinosaurs, like, back in the Cretaceous or whatever, to, like, more, like, right before they became extinct. But I would at least assume that maybe back further down the line, they were a lot closer to crocodiles, and then as they progress, it got maybe closer to birds. I don't know. I
No idea.
haven't double checked that.
I have no idea. But this book makes you kind of want to dive into it more.
Yes, it
It's
does.
that interesting, guys, and they go into that much detail on some of them. It makes you want to check if that's an accurate description of what they would really look like or not, or
Yeah.
the height or that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So they were really, really cool. And you grow up with Jurassic Park and it's kind of hard not to love it.
Yeah.
This book really makes you enjoy it and feel like a kid again, honestly.
Yeah. And I feel like even though the movie and the book are pretty different when it gets towards, like, the more actiony parts of the scenes, I still feel like it got the heart of the book,
Oh
that you
yeah.
don't feel like it's like you read the book and then you watch the movie and you don't necessarily feel like like, I feel like they're very good separately.
Yeah. They are definitely good separately. Yes, the book is better, which is often the case with books versus movies, but it doesn't completely wreck
Yeah.
your view on the book
Yeah.
like a lot of movies do.
Yeah.
So this one, the the movie is really good. We still love it, and we still watch it all the time. But um, the book is definitely better. So if you want to see more or dive into it more, highly recommend the book if you haven't read it already with us.
Yeah.
Uh, the book also makes the movie look PG in comparison. Just fair warning there. It is a bit more brutal,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
with the death scenes.
And then
It's
one thing
on the
that's
scale.
interesting too is in the beginning of the book, and this is before they, I mean, this is in the super beginning of the book, even before they kind of introduce the main characters. But in the second movie, The Lost World, there's a scene where this family goes on a picnic and the girl is, like, exploring around the beach and the compies find her, and I mean they kind of like infer that she gets eaten or whatever because you see the mother come up and scream. Now that scene actually does happen in the book, but the girl survives.
Mhm.
But it's because of the bite marks that it kind of causes the medical staff in that area to think that something's going on, and
Well, and they had reports of other bites
yeah,
too,
yeah, of, like, infants getting bitten in their sleep.
or elderly.
Yeah.
They mostly target yes, I'm aware, talkie husky. So there were mostly reports of people sleeping, mostly infants or elderly, that were bitten.
Yeah.
So they were either very still or they were sleeping when they were bitten.
Yeah.
but they had a very, very bad reaction each time to it. And some of the uh, bites incidents were not reported properly. There was a scene in the book that an infant was killed by the compies. It was fairly, it was a newborn, like a few hours prior, and it was in another room, and the midwife, I think it was, left the window open and was doing something else and came back when she heard something and discovered a few compies on the bassinet or cradle or whatever,
Yeah.
wherever the infant was, and most of its face had been eaten off.
Yeah, that was pretty disturbing to think
It
about,
was
especially,
brutal and
yeah.
gross, and she reported it as sudden death syndrome because she didn't want to have people say that she was neglectful
Mm,
and have charges brought against her and all that. It was definitely her fault. She left the window open, but she didn't report it as such.
yeah.
So,
But kind of, I don't want to, like, I feel like if we went exactly how the book was different from the movie, this,
oh, we'd be here all day.
yeah, yeah. So I'll just say that if you guys want to know the exact differences, read the
Go
book.
read it.
Read the book.
And I mean, just if you haven't already, read the book. It's a
Yeah.
great book. It is worth the read. It's fun. It is a little bit brutal, but it's really good and very detailed with the descriptions of the dinosaurs and the park itself.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that, well, we'll get into this later with the book, but they could have prevented a lot of what happened.
Yeah.
But expenses were spared.
But I know, like, some people are kind of scared to read, like, iconic movies books because it might ruin their experience. Like, for example, like Jaws. Like, if you watch the movie and then you read the book is extremely different. Like, the shark is just essentially a representation of, like, the psychological drama that the island is going through. But this book, it's very much like it translates very well to the movie, to where it's like there's no like underlying psychological stuff. It just is like, here it is. It just throws it at you.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Like, it's very
Yeah.
cut and dry. Like, it's a dinosaur park.
Yeah.
Stuff happen. Bad things happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like the movie toned down the velociraptors a
Uh,
little bit.
you can keep talking. I hear Steven is home, so let me go shut the door.
Okay.
Unless if it's a burglar, but I guess we will find out.
This is fine. So they did tone down the velociraptors. There were also 2 T-Rexes in the book. There was a juvenile and there was an adult. So there was only one in the movie, which is fine. Again, movie's got a movie. It only has a certain amount of time and all. They did do the reason for the shutdown a little bit different, but again, like you said, it translates pretty well. They did a fair amount of justice to the movie as far as the book.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they didn't completely slaughter it, which I appreciate greatly.
Yeah. And then one thing that's interesting, and this is kind of transitioning to what I didn't like about the book. So there were some characters that lived in the movie that died in the book, and then also, like, for example, the kids, Lex and Tim, their ages are actually flipped in the movie. In the book, Tim is actually older. He's way less annoying. Like, he's actually a pretty competent child, very smart child, and instead of being almost like a puppy dog to Dr. Grant like he is in the movie, he's more like, I read your book, I'm a huge fan, but he knows what he's talking about without being like completely obnoxious. It's
He doesn't come
Lex.
across quite as a know-it-all
Yeah.
like he does in the movie.
Yeah. But like Lex in the book, she is extremely annoying. I don't know, maybe that's why they made her older in the movie because they thought that, but it's like then they made Tim annoying. And then another thing
I
that's
don't know
weird
why.
is like neither one of the kids are hackers in the book, but Tim is the one that figures out how to work the computers rather than Lex.
Hmm.
Yeah, Tim is very much more of a guide to Lex in the book. Um,
He's very much the older brother.
yeah, yeah,
He takes care of her, he looks out for her. He kind of tells her what needs to be done. Whether or
yeah.
not she listens is another story.
And then Lex in
But
the book is more
yeah.
like you see her doing breakdowns, and she also is the one thing that like gives them away. Like for instance, they're in a canoe swimming away from a sleeping. I think it wasn't the juvenile. It's like
It
the full
was
grown.
no, it was the adult T-Rex. He
Okay.
was sleeping off one of his kills. He had killed another dinosaur and had eaten a fair bit of it, and was in his food coma. And was sleeping off his meal a little bit. And they're about to get away safely, and she starts coughing.
Yeah.
And it wakes up, and of course it starts swimming after them. And the only thing that saves them is the juvenile T-Rex comes and starts to claim what's left of the kill as his own,
Yeah.
and that the adult's like, "Excuse you,
Yeah.
that's my food."
And then
Back.
Malcolm in the book is extremely similar to the Malcolm in the movie.
Yeah, he
The
is.
the only
I feel like he was portrayed very well.
yeah, and there's actually some lines that he says in the book, like looking up dinosaur skirts to see what gender they are. Was actually in the movie. And then there's one other line he said. I forgot exactly which line it was, but they had it in the movie, but it was in
Uh,
a different
I
place.
remember, yeah, it was. I don't mean to get philosophical about it, but
Oh,
there it is.
yeah. Yeah, because he was like hurt. Or that, because in the book he said it whenever he was injured, wasn't it? And then in the movie he said it more towards the
I believe so.
beginning.
Yeah,
Um,
I believe
but
so.
Malcolm is one of the characters that does not make it. But so the majority of his character, like him throughout the majority of the book, really didn't annoy me that much until he goes on his tangent on how like oh
Which
science
one?
well like towards the end where he's like oh science
Oh,
does
when he's delirious, yeah.
yeah science is like or where he's like oh science just wants money, there's no honesty. I'm like you don't know what science is then. Like if
Well,
he's talking about the science where you're working for a corporation and
mhm.
there's you're not doing it for educational purposes, you're doing it for like financial gain, that's one thing. But he didn't really specify. He just said the overarching like
Well,
science.
that's mostly the world of the book, because
Yeah.
in the book they did say originally science was very much humanitarian. It was for the betterment of mankind.
Yeah.
They looked down their noses at those that would go into like corporate
Mhm.
work and all, because it was seen as you couldn't get tenure as a professor, so you had to go to a corporate job instead.
Yeah.
Or you were just trying to, you're actually a salesman. Like you're not really a scientist, you're a salesman instead. You're a shopkeeper.
Yeah, so I guess
But
the
so
lesson
this world is a little bit different. And
yeah.
that's what he was referring to. Once the genetics, and they did touch on this, it was mostly in the beginning, but they did touch on this. Once the genetic boom kind of happened, that's when they started moving away from science being more humanitarian and for the betterment of mankind, and more towards making money.
Yeah.
And when that switch happened, that's what he's referring to.
Yeah.
Is it's no longer how it should be, where they're mostly discussing, you know, the betterment of how we can progress and everything, and should we progress and have integrity with it and actually discuss things and go more towards actual knowledge instead of applying things where we really shouldn't.
Yeah.
And instead, it's all about let's apply everything here, make money on it, and sell it, whether we should or not.
See, I feel like he's a little bit vague.
A little
So
bit.
at least whenever I initially read it, I was like, so science in general. But I can like looking at their world, and I would assume that this was probably the author's purpose is be
Hmm.
like, let's not taint science by having corporate greed in the mix. Like, let's keep it as honest as possible for
Exactly.
educational reasons, for the betterment of the world.
Hmm.
If you're going to be messing with genetics and make it to where it's for everyone rather than, to patent it and all of that.
Right.
But
And I think that's why they put in the movie where he says, you didn't stop to think if you should.
yeah.
You spent all this time thinking if you could do it, you never stop to think whether or not you should.
And then another character that in the beginning is pretty similar, but as you kind of get to know him a little bit more, you realize how different he is than the movie
Hmm.
version, and that's Hammond. Like in the
Oh, yeah.
beginning, he very much seems like he's got that almost like childlike nature
Hmm.
to where it's like he just loves dinosaurs and he wants to share it with the world. But then as it transitions, you find out like he actually hates his grandkids. He was just using them for the, to as a face for the lawyer.
Hmm.
And he really just wants something as a legacy for since he's like in his 70s. I think he's like 76.
Yeah, 76.
And
And he also does want to make money. That's what
yeah,
the park is all about,
yeah.
is making money.
Yeah, like he's only going to sell or he's going to make the price so high that only rich kids can afford to come to the park.
And I mean, it makes sense. It is a novelty. I mean, who wouldn't want to say they've been to a park with actual dinosaurs?
Yeah.
And people will pay through the nose for that kind of thing, especially since they would be the only park that has that
Hmm.
as a selling point.
Yeah.
You can go to a zoo anywhere. There are hundreds of thousands of zoos all over the world,
Yeah.
but there's no other park with dinosaurs.
Yeah. But Hammond is one of the characters that ends up dying. Um, I honestly feel like he kind of deserves the way he dies.
Yeah,
You just kind of
it's a little poetic justice in
disgust.
the
Yeah,
book.
you're kind of disgusted with him by the end
Yeah,
of the book. It's kind of interesting in the movies how
he is different in
Hammond
the movie.
lasts like almost the whole series,
Hmm.
and they put him in a fairly good light given the circumstances of
Yeah.
what he's
I
done.
mean, he is mostly redeemed in the movie. He at the end of the first movie, when Grant says, "I've decided not to endorse your park," he goes, "Me either."
Yeah, while in the book, he doesn't care. He just is
Mm-mm.
continuously like Dr. Wu at one point is like, "Oh, well we can modify them to like make them safer or make them more appealing. Or, like we don't have to actually make them dinosaurs," which even Dr. Wu is like, "They're not actual dinosaurs because we spliced DNA together to
Yeah,
create this
they're not
animal."
true dinosaurs,
Yeah.
but they're as close to it as we can get. The problem is, the dinosaurs are faster, and they're a lot smarter than they thought they would be,
Mhm.
so they're far more dangerous.
Yeah.
And Wu understands that, one, the danger would be severe. If anything did fail, there
Yeah.
would be a huge problem.
Yeah.
And two, a lot of people don't think of dinosaurs as fast or very smart. They're expecting to see kind of slow, dumb animals
Yeah.
that are
Which would
cool to look
be
at,
yeah.
but that's what they're expecting. So to see that, I feel like, I think he was thinking people would be, I don't know, disappointed. or
Yeah.
confused or feel like they were cheated because they were thinking they would see one thing and then they get this other thing instead.
Well, and plus, like having a slower and dumber animal in captivity is a lot easier to
Yes.
control.
And that's what he was saying. If they modified them to make them slower and more domesticated,
Yeah.
then it would be easier to control and it would fit people's expectations a little
Yeah.
better.
But Hammond's like, no, I want dinosaurs.
Yeah, he's like,
Like,
I wanted real dinosaurs, you gave me real dinosaurs. And he kept saying, but they're not. They're
yeah.
not real dinosaurs.
Yeah. Yeah, he could not be reasoned with,
He
so
really couldn't. And you can really see his true colors come out when the tour happened and the shutdown happened, when the power went off.
yeah.
And when the dinosaurs started getting out, his first and foremost concern was not for the people on the tour, his own grandkids, or the workers that were trying to get everything in order.
Mhm.
They were for the dinosaurs themselves
Yeah.
because that was his product
Yeah. Yep.
that he was going to be selling.
Yep.
He wasn't worried about human life, even his own family's.
Yeah.
He was worried about his park, his precious park, and
Yeah.
his dinosaurs.
Yeah, and I won't get into it too much because we need to move on to the realism scale. But there was an additional character that is in the book, but not the movie, and that's Ed Regis, which is essentially they're supposed to be their tour guide. I mean, maybe he pops up and he's just
He
like
was the head of
so.
public relations,
Yeah,
and he was kind of forced into babysitting, basically, and tour guide. So, yeah.
But anyway, so instead of the lawyer sitting in the car whenever the T Rex comes out and attacks, because that scene's in the book too, um, it's Ed Regis, and it's Ed Regis that freaking leaves the kids by themselves, and not the lawyer. So,
Yep.
yeah, I feel like in the movie they really crap on the lawyer, but in the
They really
book.
do.
In the book, he doesn't seem like quite as bad as of a person and until the end when they're
Yeah,
like, you're the
there
one
you
that
go.
invested in this park, like it's
Yes.
your fault, and he's like, no, it's not my fault. He didn't want to take any responsibility.
Okay, but you're also guilty by association.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you didn't stop it. You didn't send. He was very neglectful.
yeah,
And that's the problem.
yeah,
Like, a lot of this, again, could have been avoided,
yeah,
but there was so much neglect and so many corners were cut, expenses were spared,
yeah.
that it just turned into a massive crap show.
Yep. But anyways, anything you want to add? Like I hate it because there's so many things I want to say
There's so many.
that are
There's so
different
many.
from
It's
the movie
such
and
a
the
good
book.
guys.
But
We
yeah,
have to move on. We do
Yeah.
have to move on.
Yeah.
And we always want to hear your thoughts and everything on the book too.
yeah,
Please message us with more. We would love to have a full-on conversation with you guys about it because this is an amazing book and there's just so much meat
Yeah.
to this book.
yeah. But okay, so realism.
Yes.
Ooh, do you want to go first on this one? I gotta kind of think on this one.
We have to set aside that you can actually clone DNA from dinosaurs because we know for an absolute fact this is not a thing that can happen.
Okay, good. I'm glad that you set that
So
precedence
set
because
that
I was going
aside.
to. I was gonna rate it based on that. 0. Okay.
Yeah, no, we have to set that aside. Just like with a lot of the other like demonic movies and
Yeah.
stuff like that, we have to set some aside and have an allowance for that. So, given that this is a thing in this world, maybe in that world it is a thing. And science is the way it is. It's moved toward genetic engineering and things like that. I could easily see something like this happening. I'm not gonna lie. With a lot of things like this, if you have a neglectful entrepreneur that cuts corners and all. They're in a region that specifically doesn't have many laws
Yeah.
concerning this, and that's why they chose that area.
Yeah. Well, he
They
even chose an island that he considered like really not
exactly,
a part of any country. Yeah.
exactly. He bought it from Cuba
Yeah.
or Costa Rica. It was Costa
Costa
Rica.
Rica. Yeah.
It's Costa Rica. So he bought it from this other country. So it is an island that he owns. So there's not really any laws or anything there. There are some regulations to follow, but he did the very bare minimum. He didn't listen to many of the experts with things. There were barriers and things. If you go to a zoo, there are not just physical barriers like the fencing and all, there's like a giant chasm, usually. There's other natural barriers there, or they're down really low and you can view them from a higher elevation, but they can't get up to you. It is physically
Uh,
impossible for them,
but there
for the
have
most
been,
part.
yeah, I mean,
For the
there
most
have been
part.
cases where animals get out,
There have.
but it's like,
There
you know,
have.
they have all of those safety measures to prevent animals from getting out, and
Yes.
they still get out. So,
Yes, but most of them
yeah,
have other barriers, not
yeah,
just the fence.
yeah,
The way they were describing most of them are they have like a moat and then the fence.
yeah,
And the dinosaurs can swim. That does nothing.
yeah,
Water is not helping, guys. You're just giving them an extra drinking source. That's not going to stop them.
yeah,
There wasn't much there preventing them from getting out. There
yeah.
were some that did describe some natural barriers and things, but the way they were describing it, you could tell this was not adequate.
Yeah, they were extremely dependent on the electrified fences.
Yes, and they kept insisting that the fences will not fail.
They failed.
But they do. Sweetie, technical issues happen all the time. What
Yeah,
happens if your generator goes out? Oh, we have the auxiliary power and all. Okay, but what if that fails too?
yeah.
Like, stuff
Like
happens.
have A, B,
Murphy's
C,
Law is a
D.
thing. Yes,
Yeah,
Murphy's Law is a thing.
yeah,
It's gonna go down.
yeah,
It is not a what if scenario, it's a when scenario.
yeah, yeah,
When this goes out, what do?
yeah. Exactly.
And they were also very, very insistent on the dinosaurs cannot breed. But kind of like Malcolm says, life finds a way. If a population cannot breed a certain way, or there's an obstacle that they can't really overcome, then, I mean, history has shown mutations occur,
Yeah,
something happens, they evolve.
yeah,
And it doesn't usually happen that rapidly, but they also were stupid and used amphibian DNA, which there have been several documented cases of amphibians, if there's too much of a specific gender, switching sex.
yeah. You would think that they would have done a little bit more
You would
research,
think.
but I know Dr. Wu made it sound like they used such little amount of additional DNA that they didn't think that it was necessary to like
Yes,
think about it
but
too hard.
again, why take the chance?
Yeah. Yep. I
If
mean,
you know that this is a thing that this type of species can do,
yeah.
don't use that DNA.
Well, plus DNA is so complicated. Like,
Yeah, it
oftentimes,
is.
a
It
lot
is
of
very
traits, it's not just an easy, oh, this particular gene has to deal with it. It's like a multitude of genes,
oh yeah,
and those
and they're
genes
so
normally,
interlocked.
yeah, and those genes normally have to deal with a multitude of traits. If you turn one gene off, it causes something else to happen. Like,
It's a very complex code.
yeah,
And it
very
is all
complex.
interlocked. So if you turn one thing off, it messes up a whole bunch of other things.
Yeah, yeah,
So I get it, but again, don't use amphibian DNA. if you can't turn it off without messing up a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
If there's any chance, any remote chance of them being able to do that, don't use the thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it sounded also like he didn't know that that was a thing. So again, maybe research those kinds of creatures first.
Yeah. So, what would you rate this? I don't think you actually gave it a rating.
Not quite. I'm still kind of thinking about it.
I
They
think.
did also
Mhm.
try to make them lysine dependent, a certain enzyme, but the animals are smart and they went after foods specifically that contained that compound when they did get out.
Yeah.
So that was kind of stupid of them too. That's a minor failsafe that obviously didn't work.
Yeah.
So
Or like how the lengths that they went through to prevent them from reproducing. So amphibian DNA aside, they assumed that, oh, if they x-rayed like the gonad area, then that would sterilize them. And then also they made them all female. And it's like they tried to keep all of these fail safes, but yeah.
they sucked at it. The radiation that they used is very unreliable. I don't think it was X-ray, but they did shoot radiation at where they think was their gonads. They think, they weren't entirely sure. They did say with like the delos, they tried to take out the venom sacs, but they couldn't find them. They didn't know where it was being produced. And they wouldn't do an autopsy until one of them died, and they refused to kill one. Like, Hammond would not let them euthanize one to find where that was.
Yeah. And at
So
first,
they weren't sure where the gonads were exactly.
yeah. And it's like at first you're like, oh, Hammond, he's just like rooting for the dinosaurs and he doesn't want any unnecessary deaths. But it's like whenever you hear the process that they went through, like probably hundreds, if not thousands, of dinosaurs died just to have as many as there were because it kept. I mean, I think it was Dr. Wu that was explaining, but they would like once a dinosaur, if it was successfully born, which was pretty low, it's like once it hit like juvenile and above, then that's when they would start seeing like genetic problems. And then there's like if it died, then that's when they'd go back to the drawing board. It's just I it's
So
just
you would think that, yeah, it's viable, but it has a problem where it shoots acid at our handlers. So maybe if we put this one down, we can save all the rest and still be able to handle them safely.
yeah. But I just
But no.
but like the science experiment that they created, I I feel like if that really happened in real life, I would feel so bad for those animals because especially the ones that weren't successful, like the amount of suffering that they might have
Oh yeah,
had to go through.
it's a nightmare for animal rights for sure. But again, they're in a region that's not really
Yeah.
policed
Um
or regulated. They're not really restricted like they are in most other areas.
yeah.
And that was the purpose of them going to this island.
Yeah. But anyway, so but
Probably give it about a 6, maybe
see
a 7.
oh see I it's like the actual book itself, like the whole like world setup and stuff, it seems very plausible, but then also the lack of I don't know, fail safes that they had. But then you
And
also
that's what I'm
hear
saying. Like,
about
they cut corners.
but then you also hear about companies in like real life that have done
Hmm.
some pretty stupid stuff. Oh man.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I could easily see this happening. And when I hear Dinosaur Park, my immediate thought was, well, they're gonna get out and there will be death.
Yeah.
So, especially when you start going into like the pterodactyls and the pterosaurs,
Mm-hmm.
any flying dinosaur, you're not gonna keep them there.
Yeah.
They're gonna get out, and there will be death.
So I think I'm going to rate this a 6. Like I'm not so confident in believing in it to rate it higher than that, but I definitely like, even though it's not 100% believable, obviously, some of the things that happen in the book could happen in
Oh
real
yeah.
life. I mean, they
And their
have happened.
reactions were, yeah, and their reactions were pretty accurate. They
Yeah.
show a different wide range of reactions to the
Yes.
situation. There are some that are confident and some that keep a cool level head and are trying to figure things out and how
Yeah.
do we fix this. There are some that were telling them all along, like Muldoon, we need weapons and things. We
Yeah.
need more safety measures and things because this is
Yeah.
not going to keep them there. He was
Yeah.
telling them, especially where the raptors were concerned, these
Yeah.
things are smart and they are deadly, and we need weapons and more safety measures to keep them intact. If it were up to him, they wouldn't even have the raptors.
Yeah.
Altogether. He was like, no, they are a giant. Nope, get rid of them. And they refused to get rid of them. He's like, okay, then we need things to protect against the raptors.
So, okay, now that you're talking about the variety of character reactions, I'm going to bump it up to a 7. It's a
So it
7.
was it was pretty good.
Yeah.
There were some other characters like Lex that was just panicking like the entire time, which is again, some people would react that way, and it's fair. It was annoying, but it's fair. There
Yeah.
are these giant lethal things coming after you at every turn.
Yeah.
It's I mean, it's understandable to panic a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But uh it was it was interesting to see all the different things there. The the lawyer was trying to help for the most part, but he was very cowardly, especially in the end, and was trying to. He knew this was turning into a giant mess, and he was trying to distance himself from it, but everyone was like calling him out on it. You are part of this. You invested in it. You knew what this park was.
Yeah.
You didn't insist on any inspections or anything. You didn't have anyone check. Yes, you consulted with experts, but you didn't give them the full details. And you didn't follow through on everything they said.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, we'll take it into advisement, and then you didn't actually act on a lot of it. They had poisonous plants right next to the swimming pool.
Yeah. And that was like right off the
Poison
bat.
spores.
Whenever Dr. Sadler, well, I don't know if she's a doctor yet, but anyways, she
It was Dr. Sattler.
uh well, I didn't know if she was an actual, but no, she was. Anyways, it's like they get right off of the helicopter, and then she looks at the plant, and she's like, "Oh, this isn't right."
Yeah, she's just noticing all the things. Well, that's a deadly plant, and she even mentions in the book, like in her monologue, that if a kid brushed up against this plant, they would die in like a few hours or so. Like they're very deadly plants. But she's just like mentally making a list of everything that was wrong with all the plants in the
Yeah.
area. Like, well, that's death. Oh, this wouldn't be here. Oh, that could kill us too. Like,
Yeah, they just didn't do a very good job on
no, they didn't research anything. They just, like she was saying in the book, they just chose things for aesthetics. They look nice and they look like they fit there, so they put them there. But they are death.
But what's crazy is like they literally have like paleontologists who like speak to, and they didn't use that resource.
Yeah.
Just crazy.
Yeah, but they didn't really ask her about plants that they could use for aesthetics or anything. They
True.
asked about what the dinosaurs would eat, And they did have a lot of that there.
Yeah.
But they didn't think to ask, okay, what could kill them?
Yeah.
So they could avoid those altogether.
Yeah.
And also, what could kill our park goers?
Yeah.
What plants should we stay away from altogether? Yeah.
So, well, I don't have it. Do you want to wrap up? Or do you have anything else you want to say?
The only other thing I can think of is I did dock it a little bit more because I feel like more dinosaurs would have gotten off than they had said had already gotten away.
Yeah.
Like, we know a bunch of the compies got out, and we think some of the raptors had possibly already gotten out, but I feel like more would have gotten off of the island than they were saying. Because with as many things that failed, or even with the fail-safes there were raptors in one of the structures underground. And
yeah, that was scary.
To the sea. Like, they were getting on the boats.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how the crew didn't notice that there were raptors on the boat.
I know! It's like, why did they have to notify the people? Like, whenever they called the people on the boat, they had no clue. It's like,
they had no idea that there were raptors on their boat.
And wasn't it like an 18-hour, like...
Yes!
There was no way they wouldn't be able to know. Just...
Yeah. They weren't paying attention, apparently. And I know they were juvenile raptors. They were like 3 foot tall. Still deadly.
Yep. But cute.
There were like 3 of them.
Yeah.
On the boat.
Yeah, there's a ton of raptors in this book.
There were so many. And they were terrifying. They described them as moving at, 60 to 75 miles per hour or so? So about the speed of a cheetah.
And extremely smart. And they were breeding extremely successfully.
Extremely. No. They had a pack order, man.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. It's terrifying.
Yeah, no. They made the raptors far more scary in the book than they did the movie.
Yeah, like...
That's saying something.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, in the movie, it doesn't do it justice, which I totally get, because they're doing a mixture of, like, puppets and animatronics, but in the movie, they do come off...
Kids watch it, too, so they toned it down a little bit.
Well, where I was getting at is, in the movie, they make the raptors seem a little bit slower.
Oh, yes. Definitely.
Well, in the book, they are fast.
Yeah. I mean, they are fast in the movie, don't get us wrong. But in the movie, they're still able to run and be able to get away from them.
Yeah.
Like, they're running about the same speed, roughly. Maybe just a tad slower. The humans are running just a tad slower than the raptors. But on the whole, like, in the first movie at least. I know in one of the newer movies, they show Chris Pratt on a motorcycle with the raptors running alongside him and all, but still.
That's with CG.
Yeah. These are later times with better technology. In the movies, they're able to get away from the raptors. In the book, if you're in a running contest, you're gonna die.
Yep.
The people that got away were like right next to some kind of physical barrier that they could get behind.
Yeah.
Like a door, or like a very, very strong door. Or they got up in a structure that the raptors couldn't really get in, and they also had a gun, where they, like Muldoon, that blew off one of the raptor's legs when he started getting too close to his hiding place.
Yeah. But...
Or they were climbing a tree, which the raptors would also climb.
Well,
but she had a head start.
Well, like whenever I think it's Hammond and Malcolm and some other people were in like the structure, and they're biting through the steel bars from the roof. I'm like, that is terrifying. Terrifying.
They were eating through our defenses, literally.
Like steel. Like, Oh, that is
While
horrifying.
dude is just sitting here like, I'm the one that suggested that, and even that's not strong enough.
Oh, crazy.
So yeah, but I definitely give it about a 6, tentative 7 for the realism. I could see this kind of thing happening, especially with the raptors, the way they describe them. They are a nope.
Yeah.
If they were described to me and they're like, yeah, they're gonna be one of the big attractions, no.
Why?
This is, do you want to die?
Yeah.
This is how you die.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, the
Especially,
T-Rex is bad enough, but
I know, especially like since the guns, like what they had to use against the dinosaurs would either just like slow them down or it would take them a
yeah.
while to like die or be affected by it. It's just,
Yeah.
oh, terrifying.
Yeah. This is bad all around. And
Yeah.
they didn't have near enough safety measures or anything with like physical barriers or chasms or anything in between the fencing. Nothing like that. No backup measures really. I mean, when the system went down, everything went down. There was no backup.
Yeah.
The system was going through an update. Like he basically put a virus in there and it shut down
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. You know, Nedry wasn't quite as annoying of a character in the book than the movie. Like um in the movie he really annoyed me for some reason. I think it's and like the stupid
A
fire
little
thing.
bit, yeah. That didn't happen in the book.
Yeah.
But he did mess with the system, and it took them a while to have it all untangled. And even then, they still didn't have everything down.
Yeah.
So
But
if the system goes down, you screwed. That's kind of a really big red flag there.
yeah, for sure.
They had too much automation, I feel like. I know they were trying to make it easier that way
to
and
cut down
safer.
costs and
Yeah.
employees and stuff. Because didn't they say that
Yeah.
like 20 people can run the park by themselves or something like
Easily.
that?
And what's his face? Starts with an
Harding?
A.
Or
No, it starts with an A.
a Oh, Arnold?
Yes. Arnold said that he could basically run it himself. Like the system itself. He could run it himself from the control center, if need be. So really they just need the handlers out there to feed them or to check up on them.
Yeah.
Like they would trank them, and Harding the vet would go out there and give them a once over. But that was about it.
Yeah.
That was all they really needed, he said.
Yeah.
But again, if the system goes down, all your safety goes down and you screwed.
Yep.
That T-Rex grabbed the fence, realized it wasn't electrified anymore, and ripped through it like tissue paper.
Halloween candle. I actually meant to have this going before we started live streaming, but we had those tech issues. But anyways. Well, anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
Go read the book, guys. If you haven't already, go read it.
Read it. Yeah. And it's a decently long book, but it's not like terribly long.
It doesn't feel that long when you're reading it because it's so intense you feel like you can't put it down.
Yeah, like there was one day that I read almost 150 pages and I want to keep on reading. Like,
yes.
It was a very good book.
And if you listen to the audiobook, at least the one that I listened to did a very, very good job of it. It was hard to stop listening. Like, I had to go to bed. It was late, I had to go to bed, but I didn't want to stop listening. It was an intense scene.
Yeah, very good. But
so go read it, go listen to it, whatever you have to do. Sink your teeth into this book.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
It's good. It's very, very good. So tell us what you guys thought about it too, and what you noticed was different in the book than in the movie, what you liked better about either or. And if you have any other suggestions on other books for us to read, let us know.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So, and stay tuned, guys. We have a whole bunch planned for this month. This is Spoopy month.
Yes,
We
we're
have
hating
so much
ourselves
planned.
already.
A little, but I'm excited too.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a lot of fun. We
Yeah.
have a lot of cool stuff planned.
Yeah.
So, we are going to be live next week on a Twitch live stream
Oh
where you
God.
can watch us
Yeah.
play a scary game and freak out to it. And that will be at 7.
Well, I guess it is now since you said it. It would be. Yeah, you did say that we would start off at 7 though.
We start
So,
off at 7,
and
and
we'll
then the
go from
next time
there.
we'll do 6 if we need more time.
Yeah.
So next weekend, Saturday night, we will start our Twitch live stream at 7 p.m. It will not be a.m. We are not morning people. It will be 7 p.m. and we will be playing Sign of Silence.
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about this game, but the trailer looks pretty interesting. I hope
I
it's
am
not just
so
jump scare central. I want it to
excited.
actually be scary, but I have high hopes.
The atmosphere looks really good for it. I'm
Yeah.
excited. We haven't played it yet, guys. We are waiting until that night to play it. So I am so excited. So please join us, guys, at 7 p.m. next Saturday night and watch us freak out to Sign of Silence.
Yes.
And until then, we will still be coming out with our regular episodes and things and a couple other bonus episodes.
Yep.
So stay tuned for those, as well as our sweet treats that go along with your tea.
Yeah.
We'll be posting one of those tomorrow, the recipe for it, the broken glass cake. And we have another one planned soon. So, hope y'all are ready. I'm excited. Hope you guys are too. And until the next time, guys, stay safe and stay spoopy.
Bye, guys.
Bye.